coaching tree, back-to-back trips to the NCAA tournament in his 6th season in Las Cruces. And here is his lineup with a very international flair. Bonjassi from France, 3 Canadians in the starting lineup as well. Ronaldo Dixon, Daniel Mullings, and Sim Boular for St. Louis. Very talented team, very experienced. The lone underclassman is Grandy Glaze. Top scorer is Dwayne Evans. And there is the interim head coach, who is now a finalist for Coach of the Year, Jim Cruz, handpicked by Rick Majerus to take over this Billikens team in 2013. Majerus passing away on December 1st. This is a team playing with a lot of emotion here. Our officials today, John Cowell, Michael Nance, and Brett Nansel will put the ball in the air. Brian Anderson with Dan Bonner. Great to have you with us. And a very intriguing matchup here, Dan. And the St. Louis Billikens, a team that a lot of people are moving on in their brackets.
They pass the ball very well. They shoot the ball very well. They really play tough on the defensive end of the court.
And already showing that defensive pressure. And that's a held ball right out of the gates. And possession arrow will belong to St. Louis. So St. Louis comes in, they win the regular season, the A-10 and the A-10 tournament.
The A-10's a really good league, and they won both the tournament and the regular season title. You see they're 18th in the NCAA in scoring defense, and they have a very balanced offensive attack.
Well, Jim Cruz said he thought he had seen it all in the Atlantic 10. But what they have not seen is the man that, if you're watching New Mexico State for the first time, is the 7'5" Sim Boular. 7'5", 360, one of the most unique players in all of basketball.
Really makes it, he's going to make it hard for St. Louis to play inside, and St. Louis gets an awful lot of its points from inside the three-point arc.
And Boular, who is a freshman from the Toronto area, played his high school ball at Huntington Prep. What a force in the paint.
Wow, when he gets the ball close to the basket, he's hard to stop. When you have the ball close to the basket and he's around, it's hard to get past it. Man-to-man defense.
Glaze bounced it off his foot. You can see some nerves right away. Already 2 turnovers for New Mexico State. St. Louis just giving it away. It's to be expected. Well, Dan, New Mexico State has been under Marvin Menzies, a team that likes to get up and down, but not necessarily the case with Sim Boular in the starting lineup.
Well, you want to wait for Sim, as you can see there, 82 block shots, but look at that field goal percentage. He leads the WAC, and one of the things, he doesn't shoot the ball from much further than 5-6 feet from the basket, but when he's close, he's hard to stop.
He is the tallest player in Division I basketball. Oh, that St. Louis defense, so good this year, the best in the Atlantic 10. A very good conference this season, and a quick timeout for Marvin Menzies and New Mexico State.
That's one of the scraps under the basket, and players just automatically call that timeout. I'm not sure that that's a good timeout at this point of the game.
And we invite you to celebrate 75 years of March Madness by voting for your all-time players, teams, and moments of the NCAA tournament. Vote now, ncaa.com/March Madness. Dan Bonner's been a part of all 75 of those championships, and still bothers him when players call timeout.
If there's only a minute and a half into the game, there's no score, I'm not sure that the possession is so important that you call that timeout.
Out of the timeout, Boular trying to keep it alive, but St. Louis clears it away. Here's Evans, the Billikens' top scorer, and finally some points on the board here.
See, it's a misnomer that this is a St. Louis team that wants to slow it down. They play very good half-court offense, but if they have the opportunity to get out and get a basket in transition, they will take it. They're in the top 40% of teams in terms of points per game, so they are not a slow-down team.
They average 68.7 points per game. They hold their opponents to just over 58 points, which was best in their conference in the Atlantic 10. Shot clock down to 5. Mullings gets away with a shove perhaps, and he's unable to cash it in. Here comes Quamaine Mitchell, the Milwaukee native. All of these players at St. Louis recruited by Rick Majerus. Jim Cruz taking over this team and just rolling through the A-10 this year.
One of the things that you see is Grandy Glaze, number 1. He's being guarded by Sim Bular. You notice Bular is in the middle of the lane. Glaze is not a three-point shooter, and that's what they need. St. Louis, they need a three-point shooter in the game to match up against Bular to try to draw him out.
See, Michigan State has gone final. They have beaten Valpo and moving on CBS.
That's what we're talking about. St. Louis is not a team that is looking to walk the ball up the court every time. They will get out and run, and Dwayne Evans in particular is a great finisher in transition.
Here's Clemaine Mitchell. He's a 70% free throw shooter. Senior out of Milwaukee, Dominican High School in Milwaukee. So much talent, so much experience with the St. Louis Billikens. And kind of a perfect storm of talent, experience, and now emotion as they're trying to make a significant run here in the NCAA tournament. And many expect them to do so, and they do not drop much at all when they go to their bench. The sharpshooter Cody Ellis and Jordair Jet, who will run the point. The Aussie Cody Ellis with the blue hair, he's easy to spot.
And he's also a three-point shooter. You notice he came in for Glaze, so it'll be very interesting to see what Sim Bular does on the defensive end now. If he's going to play back in the middle of the lane, Ellis or Lowe can make him pay for that. This man-to-man defense by St. Louis is really good.
Jet matches up against Ross Miller, the Texan. And who's that belong to? That's out of bounds on New Mexico State. And is it going to be overruled? Michael Nance comes in, and
I think Brent Nance will call black, but he pointed in the wrong direction. Anybody who's ever refereed a basketball game has had that happen to him.
A lot of early turnovers for New Mexico State, trying to get something going offensively.
I don't think they know about the shot clock.
Down to 1 as Ross Miller gets up a desperation 3. Bonjasi with the rebound. And there's St. Louis on the attack. Mitchell comes away with a steal. And Bonjasi takes it right back. Low all over C. And there to clean it up. Well, point blank. Ronaldo Dixon gets his own. And New Mexico State is on the board. You can tell right away St. Louis is taking New Mexico State out of what they typically do with Bular in the game. Normally gets multiple touches down in the paint.
You can see Jordair Jet driving to the basket that last time, Brian. It's hard to drive to the basket and finish with a 7'5" guy waiting for you. That time Bular was matched up against Dwayne Evans, who's also not a three-point shooter. So New Mexico State on their defensive end really trying to keep Bular in the middle of the lane.
Well, 20 seconds of dribbling by Ross Miller, and finally a travel on Mullins.
New Mexico State is a team that does a great job on the offensive board. St. Louis is going to have to be careful.
Have to play back to Brian and Dan in San Jose.
All right, thanks a lot, Greg. Jim Cruz and the Billikens defeating Butler 3 times this year. Let's take a look at the Infinity Coaches Spotlight. And for that, we bring in the third member of our team, Marty Snyder. Marty?
Well, Brian, exactly how Jim Cruz got to St. Louis, very interesting. It was actually a couple weeks before the season last year was supposed to start, and Rick Majerus had an assistant quit. So he called Jim Cruz, one of the great X's and O's guys in the business, and said, hey, if it's only a 6-month deal, will you please come to St. Louis and be one of my assistants? He said, sure, if it's only 6 months. Well, we all know the rest of the story. He is now the interim head coach, and he's loving this team. And he said, not bad for a guy who was supposed to be retired, now a finalist for the Naismith Coach of the Year. The big question is, will he coach here next year? Kind of seems like the ball's in his court, Brian.
Well, absolutely, and I think that was the impression as Bonjasi after the whistle on the other end. And Dan, that was what he intimated to us yesterday, is that it's really his decision. He's seen the other side. He knows that it's better for his health to not be a coach. He does enjoy the game, but there's been a lot of talk about a long-term future for Jim Cruz at St. Louis.
And the important thing for everybody to remember is St. Louis University is not keeping him hanging. He's the one who doesn't want to make any sort of a decision until after the season is over.
When you think about this entire group of Billikens here, all recruited by Rick Majerus, maybe his best recruiting job was Jim Cruz to take over this team and convincing him to get back in the game. Shot clock is down. The St. Louis defense on point early. That was poked away from behind. Now Rick Majerus passing away December 1st. And they knew something was desperately wrong when he decided he couldn't do it. Because of health reasons, he wasn't able to be with the team this year. And one of the legends of this game. And they wear the Majerus ribbon on their jerseys, the Billikens. Majerus took the St. Louis team to the tournament for the first time last year as Banja C. A dunk with authority. And New Mexico State starting to get in a little bit of their flow offensively. Whistle. Foul on New Mexico State.
One of the things that New Mexico State has been unable to do early is penetrate that St. Louis defense. This is just a great pass. Bonjasi, an extremely athletic, effective inside player, is able finally to get inside that defense. That is only the second New Mexico State field goal, and they've already got 4 turnovers.
Foul on Bonjasi as Evans shoots the free throws. Dwayne Evans from Bolingbrook, Illinois.
One of the things we mentioned is that now Simbular is matched up against Dwayne Evans down on this end of the court when New Mexico State is on defense. But nonetheless, Evans has been able to operate, and we've seen him score a field goal, and now those 2 free throws. So he can operate close to the basket no matter who he's playing against.
Evans with 4 quick points, heads to the bench. 8-4 St. Louis underway, the first of our 4 games here in San Jose. The winner here will match up against the winner of Oregon State, Oregon and Oklahoma State. Another offensive rebound, one of the smallest guys on the floor. Mullings comes away with it.
Simbular got a hand on that. He's hard to block out.
Drawing that assignment is Corey Remican. And Remican fronts Bullard, does a nice job. And New Mexico State turns it over once again. It's now 6 turnovers for the Aggies.
Bullard not really strong with those hands.
Terrell DeRuin matching up against Mike McCall. Jake Barnett.
Barnett's a 3-point shooter matched up against Bonjasi.
And there's Jet in and out. Ellis keeps it alive. And he's fouled by DeRuin. Cody Ellis, the senior out of Perth, Australia. The St. Louis team is so deep. Marvin Menzies trying to counter that as Remy Berry will check in. So Bullard on the bench. And we'll see if New Mexico State plays a little faster. And there's the 3-point threat of Cody Ellis.
And that was not an easy shot. New Mexico State had that smelled out pretty well. And there was a couple of hands in Ellis's face. But Ellis is one of those guys, when he gets going from 3-point range, it's hard to stop him.
Ellis averaging over 10 points per game coming off the bench for St. Louis. Bonjasi, and he's fouled by Jake Barnett. Back on the other end, Dan.
Well, and when you're running an inbounds play, you always got to pay attention. Here's Ellis here, and what he's going to do is just go to the corner. Now, look, these guys are doing a great job with the screens, and both Remy Berry and Dixon are trying to get over, but they're just a little bit too late.
A good hustle by Remican. New Mexico State basketball. Marvin Menzies. Now in his 6th year and his 4th trip to the NCAA tournament. Back-to-back trips here. He was in Portland last year, and he drew the first matchup against Indiana a season ago.
This man-to-man defense is very effective because they pressure the basketball. They prevent you from getting dribble penetration, and then they block you out when you shoot it and rebound the thing.
That's a blocking call on St. Louis, like Remican hit with a foul. Let's take a look behind the stats presented by LG. What's got your eye, Dan?
Well, one of the things that New Mexico State wants to do is take the ball to the basket. You see they make more points from the free throw line than from the three-point arc. You already mentioned their international flavor. Cody Ellis, we've talked about him. He was the 6th man of the year in the A-10. But for New Mexico State to be effective, they've got to get the ball inside, and that's something they've had a problem with here early in the game.
DeRuin, a little too much for Bonjassi. He's a high flyer, but not that high.
Not quite that much.
LeBron maybe, Bonjassi no. St. Louis winning the regular season title in the A-10 and the tournament title. They beat VCU. A very entertaining game in the A-10. There's Ellis again. 1 for 2, offensive board, Remican. McCall and Remican, the two-man game.
And New Mexico State, they've got very quick players. They're pretty good on defense preventing that penetration, and they try to force it to St. Louis, and they throw it out of bounds.
We'll take a break. 11-4, Billikens just underway here. Earlier in Auburn Hills, Michigan. St. Louis, the 4 seed, leading the 13 seed New Mexico State. It's 11-4, and the St. Louis defense stifling New Mexico State.
Now, New Mexico State has 7 turnovers, and they've only made 2 field goals. And now New Mexico State elects to switch to a zone defense.
Now the big man Boular is back in. It's 7-5. Manning the middle of that zone. Shot clock down to 4. And the Billikens got to get one up here. Ellis, and not in time. Shot clock violation. Keep an eye on True TV. Butler and Bucknell coming down to the end. Butler in control with 1:43 remaining out of the Atlantic 10. The Butler Bulldogs, Brad Stevens. Well, they had some great battles in the A-10 this year with VCU and Butler and, of course, St. Louis.
Here's that tough man-to-man defense that we've been speaking about, and it's been really difficult for New Mexico State to really get into any offensive rhythm, and there they have to call their 2nd timeout in the first half. Another reason why that first one was such a bad idea. We talked about the St. Louis defense, and it has been as advertised. They have done a great job forcing turnovers and putting the Aggies in difficult positions. Not really very many good looks from New Mexico State here early. And this has been the key for St. Louis because they really haven't shot the ball very well. But their defense has put them in a great spot here early in the game.
Well, St. Louis just 3 for 10 shooting the ball as Mullings out of the timeout gets to the basket.
And Mullings is an extremely talented player. He can drive it to the goal. He can shoot the 3. He rebounds. He's a great assist guy. That time, he just bulled his way to the basket past Kwame Mitchell. And New Mexico State is going to need more of that.
Mullings is their best scorer, the 6'2 sophomore out of Toronto. One of the many foreign-born players as Evans answers on the other end.
That's really a nifty little maneuver there by St. Louis. Rob Lowe set a screen on Sim Boular and prevented him from getting anywhere close to Dwayne Evans.
Here's Mullings. Barry trying to clear some space for him. DeRuin, the Las Cruces native.
That Mullings-Mitchell matchup is going to be a really, really good one.
And it's going to be a block on Cam Lowe.
And we're talking about Mullings and Mitchell, and this is a situation where Mullings is just going to beat him off the dribble. Mitchell not quite able to move his feet. Ellis not able to get over and help out. And now here you see the screen by Lowe, who for his efforts gets pushed about 6 feet over toward the baseline, but that screen freed up Evans.
Quick breather for Daniel Mullings, one of the top scorers in the WAC and the top steals man in the conference.
Well, he won't be out long. He averages almost 35 minutes a game.
A pretty thin rotation for Marvin Menzies.
Here we are. There's 24 seconds left on the shot clock, which is now totally stopped. The clock, and now it starts again.
Arona's got the first shot up, offensive board twice, and Boular is having a tough time down there. Rob Lowe is handling the 7'5" Boular so far.
Brian, that's the clock. Both the shot clock and the game clock stopped for about 5 or 6 seconds. And Boular, you notice he gets his hands on the ball, but Lowe does a great job preventing Boular from getting back to the basket. So the officials now, they're going to go over and talk about the fact that the clock stopped for a few seconds.
John Cowell.
I was trying to make the point that here we are with 24 seconds left on the shot clock, and New Mexico State really can't get their offense going, and the 24 stayed up there and stayed up there.
Well, they were making sure they got their offense going. So check the clock, and as New Mexico State gets going here, and John Cowell is looking at the same replay as well.
So there it's at
9:46
and 24 seconds, the clock freezes. So the officials are going to have to determine how many seconds they're going to have to take off.
I got a 12 count by the old Mississippi.
You got it. So you got 12 Mississippis? Okay.
12 Mississippis.
Well, I believe that when they go over there, they probably have a stopwatch. This is the NCAA tournament. They're probably a little more sophisticated than Mississippi's.
Okay. All right.
Can't say for sure.
So we're going to run it back for them so they can actually put a real watch on. They're not going to trust the Mississippi count at this point. And then it starts again. So
it did not start until the ball hit the rim and they reset the shot clock.
So if it goes to 24-12, dinner's on you tonight.
Well, now they're going to call the coaches together, and the issue here is with the game clock. The ball did hit the rim, so the shot clock should have reset. And by your Mississippis, there should have still been 12 left on the shot clock when the shot was attempted.
All right.
So the question here is, we're at 9:38. Should we be at 9:26?
A pause in the action here.
9:27, so your Mississippis were pretty close.
Well, I got into like didn't get to the ippy.
Okay, so your Mississippis didn't have tenths of a second on it.
Could have had this resolved 30 seconds ago.
All they had to do was ask you, Brian. That's the way I resolve things.
All right, well, it'll be St. Louis basketball here. 13-6. You could see some anxiety with both of these teams as this game started. Boular just quickly there. Had a little medical issue, just a little blood, so they taped it up. He's fine, no problem. And we'll see New Mexico State in the full court pressure. Not something they do a lot of.
Not something they do a lot of, but they really have to change the tempo of this game. They'd like to get themselves some easy baskets, and maybe if they can force some turnovers, they'll be able to do that.
St. Louis just 4 for 11 shooting so far. And Evans has done most of their scoring. He's back in there, matching up against Boular. Down into Evans. Shot clock at 5. He kicks it out, and great defense by Bonjassi. That's going to be a foul on Rob Lowe.
And this is a direct result of Boular in the middle. Now here's Dwayne Evans. He's going to catch that ball inside, and against most people he would just go up, but he's not even going to try it against Boular, and because the shot clock is running down, Lowe has to force one. And then Lowe gets the foul reaching over. That zone defense has really made St. Louis stand around, and that's part of the goal.
Lowe is on the bench with 2 fouls. Remican has the task of Boular, and beautiful take by Remy Berry. Boy, if they get production from Remy Berry here, that's going to be a big hit for New Mexico State.
One of the few times that New Mexico State has been able to get that dribble penetration, and now St. Louis has to get some penetration. You can't just throw the ball around the perimeter.
Remican, no, and there's Berry with the rebound. Remy Berry, the sophomore from Paris. Ross Miller, too much size to deal with inside the paint. From deep range, Mitchell, a 3. Kwame Mitchell cans a 3-pointer.
Okay, so maybe you don't need to go inside. What do I know?
Just pick them apart from the outside.
Just dribble the ball down the court and shoot a three.
It's only the second field goal made by any other Billiken not named Evans. Evans 3 for 4 shooting. The rest of the team now 2 for 8. 16-8 St. Louis. Their defense has covered their poor shooting. Al-Jassi coming up short.
And they're doing a great job blocking out Sim Bular. He has not been able to get anywhere close to the ball on these offensive rebounding opportunities.
And Bular just one field goal attempt. McCall hesitated. Mitchell. Dish into Rivican. Here's Evans. Bular missed it, and Evans able to cash it in against the 7-foot 5-inch Bular.
That's twice now that Evans has taken it right at Bular and scored. So he's passed up a couple because of Bular, but he's very aggressive, not intimidated at all.
Sim Bular, a big presence in the block shots. He doesn't jump a whole lot, but he has whiffed twice on a couple of Evans attempts. That's poked away from behind.
We talked about Sim Bular being a great defensive presence inside, 82 blocked shots. Not here, folks. Evans is very effective getting it in.
Coverage of the NCAA men's basketball tournament is sponsored by Miller Lite, John Deere, and by Buffalo Wild Wings.
Beautiful Thursday in San Jose. Our game summary. The St. Louis Billikens up 18-8 on New Mexico State. Relentless defensive pressure.
Talked about St. Louis's defense, and it has been as advertised. You can see St. Louis has forced 8 turnovers, and New Mexico State only has 4 field goals. In fact, Dwayne Evans for St. Louis has as many field goals as the Aggies.
6 times this year St. Louis held an opponent under 50. And their best defensive effort against Edwardsville held them to 41 points earlier this season. They regularly hold opponents under 60. And they've got that kind of game going so far with 6:40 remaining.
And one of the reasons that their offense has been productive is Dwayne Evans. And Evans is using that quickness against Sim Bular. This time a screen by Lowe. But Evans is very good in the mid-range and close to the basket. And so far we've seen his speed and quickness beat the size and power of Sim Bular.
Dwayne Evans 10 points. And he adds 2 more to it. Boy, he's having a great day. Dwayne Evans. Butler has gone final against Bucknell. They win over on True TV. So the first A-10 team to advance, one of the 5 Atlantic 10 Conference teams involved in this tournament this year. DeRuin not there. Going high is Mullings for the putback.
Cody Ellis, who does a great job taking charges. In fact, has taken 43 this year. Was not able to get the charge that time.
Here's Evans again.
I think Bular got a piece of that one.
Bular had 82 blocks this season, the best in the WAC. Averaged about 2.5 blocks per game this season. Mullins so quick and threw it right past Bular.
This is a situation where DeRuin is going to the basket here and floats it up, and the defense goes to DeRuin, and as therefore Mullins is able to tip it in.
And a pass too hot for Bular. That's the 9th turnover for New Mexico State.
That's one of the reasons why you want to cut down on dribble penetration, because a couple of guys go to that ball and it leaves people open for offensive rebounding opportunities. New Mexico State stays in the 2-3 zone.
And Evans finds a nice soft spot, and Evans is having a huge day to start this tournament.
Where Evans caught that ball and his eyes probed around, and he finally realized he was completely open and knocked it in.
Wild shot by DeRuin. New Mexico State frustrated. Tony Watson is in as Mitchell lets a 3 go, and Rivican can't finish. Flying high, but unable to put it down.
Just need to tip that in. Don't have to dunk it. It counts the same if you just tip it in.
So Tyrone Watson with the basketball. He has been one of their senior leaders, and he hasn't played much. He hasn't played in 2 weeks, actually, with a high ankle sprain. Trying to give it a go here as Mullings has it halfway down and out.
Boy, the Aggies just can't get anything going.
Remican wide open. Well, Boulard was struggling to get back down the floor. Remican was not. And an easy one on the other end. 24-10, St. Louis. And a foul on Remican.
St. Louis has used its defense to create tough shots and to create turnovers, and they've pushed the ball up the court. This is a situation where it looks like New Mexico State's getting back pretty well on defense. And here he has, this is what we were talking about with Evans. Catches the ball inside, looks around, a lot of room, and knocks it home.
Evans now with 14 points. Terrell DeRuin at the free throw line and unable to connect. Remican there to clear it away. St. Louis on an 11-2 run. Buckets have been tough to come by for the Aggies. Glaze to Evans and again challenges Boulard. Watson the rebound.
And that was a shot that Boulard affected.
And Boulard open. Goes to his motion, his turnaround. That's his shot, his bread and butter.
Well, he didn't need to turn that way. All he had to do, it made it a harder shot than it was. But you have to be impressed with the big guy. He keeps running up and down the court. This is a game that, with all the turnovers that New Mexico State has had, he's really had to get up and down, and he's done it effectively.
Well, he's going to have to get out there on Evans. He is wearing out New Mexico State. Evans, 16 points.
We talked about it. Around the basket, a mid-range shooter. He is really tough. And that was a quick release before Boulard could get there.
How much can Marvin Menzies expect out of Tyrone Watson as Bonjasi unable to connect? He's playing with a high ankle sprain. He's not running the floor very well. Evans, Remican, and C got a piece. And that's actually going the other way. That's going to be New Mexico State basketball. The big man, Sim Boulard, finally getting into the action here. Thanks. What a shooter. Rodney Clark, transfer from Arkansas. And Butler is moving on. St. Louis hopes to do the same today. They lead at 26-12. That call was changed by John Cowell right before we went to break. It is New Mexico State basketball here in desperate need of a bucket. Watson. And they just cannot get the ball down into Sim Boulard. Just a reminder, this summer, TNT and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson are looking for America's #1 hero. Get ready for an epic new competition series, The Hero, only on TNT.
And remember what we talked about, that New Mexico State, their strength is getting the ball inside, and they just haven't been able to do it successfully.
DeRuin with 5 on the shot clock. Bonjasi an offensive board. Boulard can't put it back. A couple of chances there for the Aggies. And nothing doing. Mitchell kicks it out. Jordan Jet. And Evans, the board, goes up again against Boulard. He's getting some shots off. Mullings wanted a call. Bonjasi cleans it up. Well, a lot of contact underneath with Daniel Mullings. New Mexico State defeating UT Arlington to earn their trip to the NCAA tournament. Back-to-back years winning the WAC tournament. This is the team that snapped Louisiana Tech's 18-game winning streak a couple of weeks ago.
Well, right at the moment, they're trying to claw their way back in the game. They've switched back to the man-to-man defense. And Boulard, he didn't do anything except stand there. He has affected the last couple of shots. And when those balls come hard off the board like that, it gives New Mexico State a chance to get down and get offense quickly before the defense can get set.
C had it blocked by Ellis. Looking for somebody. Plenty of time on the shot clock. DeRuin will take a 3. And a whistle underneath. That's going to belong to New Mexico State. St. Louis ball, foul on C.
You talked about Sim Boulard and his 82 blocked shots, but sometimes all he has to do is stand in there, and by his presence, Kwame Mitchell certainly saw big number 2 in the lane, tried to shoot it over top, and as a result changed the shot, and it was a miss.
82 blocked shots and 1,000 scares. 26-14 St. Louis. Boulard to the bench, and Marty Snyder. Boulard, a rare breather here. He's a guy who plays a lot for a big man.
He does play a lot for a big man. He's playing right now at 355, but last year in high school as a senior, he played at 415 pounds. He lost 60 pounds this offseason. He told me when I got to college, I could barely play 20 minutes in a game, but in the WAC championship game, played 36 minutes. Does a good job getting up and down. Told me I'm just scratching the surface of how good I could be, but Brian, I think Dan Bonner could take him, don't you?
No problem.
I think it definitely could take him.
Makes me look like I'm standing up next to Dan Bonner as Ellis fires a three. That's a big shot. Ellis hits his second three-pointer. And just as New Mexico State was starting to get a little something going offensively, Ellis counters with a three.
St. Louis tends to be a very efficient offensive team.
DeRuin all the way to the basket. Yes. Clock winding down here in the first half. Well, Sim Boulard averaged 33 minutes in the WAC tournament. And New Mexico, they can play a lot faster when he is on the bench.
Not much speed going to go on here as St. Louis is going to hold it for the last shot. And Boulard's out of the game, so the drive all the way to the basket is available for the Billikens at the moment.
Kwame Mitchell probing. And he'll take a three. Mitchell in and out. And that's how it ends in the first half. So St. Louis, a popular pick in this year's tournament. A strong first half, 29-16. Outstanding defense. Now, coming up on A&T at the half, we'll get you caught up on all the latest tournament news, highlights, and updates. That's all coming up on AT&T at the half as we send it over to Marty with Jim Cruz.
Well, Jim, to us, it looked like a pretty perfect half for your team, but you're a coach. I know there's probably something your kids are not doing right.
No, we had great effort. I thought New Mexico State did a good job getting on the boards, offensive boards, and we put them on the line a little bit too many times. They got in the bonus, but our guys pushed the ball up. We changed the ball from one side to the other, and we're able to get some things inside against their zone.
When we talked yesterday, you were worried about how to guard Boulard. Are you happy with the job your guys have done on him?
Yeah, so far we had good team defense, and I think that we've moved our feet well and collectively collapsed when we needed to.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks.
Brian?
All right, Marty, thanks. Starting to file in here in San Jose, biggest lead of the game. The halftime score, St. Louis 29-16. We check in with Marty, who is with Marvin Menzies.
Well, we're just talking about the first half there, Coach, and offensively you seem like you're getting a lot of rebounds, but you can't put it in the hole. What do you need to do different?
That was one of our emphasis. We got to beat them on the glass. We're doing a good job of that, up 8, but we're just not finishing shots. I mean, we're a much better offensive production team that we're shooting. We're probably averaging 45%, and we're shooting 25 right now. And you got to give the St. Louis credit for that. They're doing a good job of challenging without fouling, and we'll be okay. We're going to tweak a few things here in the second half, and we're going to show them what we're about.
Thanks, Marvin.
All right, thanks.
The one thing we did talk about is he did talk about Sim Boulard. He challenged him at halftime, Brian, saying you've got to be more aggressive, especially on the defensive end.
Boulard offensively, thank you, Marty, just 1 for 3. And Dan Bonner, St. Louis holding New Mexico State to a season-low 16 points. This is a team that can score a little bit.
Yeah, they can score, but St. Louis defense has really done a nice job preventing some dribble penetration, and when they have gotten penetration, they haven't been able to score.
All right, well, you heard Marvin Menzies, poor shooting first half for New Mexico State. Let's take a look at the first half stats presented by Coke Zero. St. Louis not shooting the ball that well either, especially early in the first half, but their defense kept them right there. And holding New Mexico State to just 16 points in the first half. Their previous low had been 17.
And part of the problem for New Mexico State is the simple fact that Dwayne Evans for St. Louis has 16 points. He's got as many points as New Mexico State. Boulard simply hasn't been able to match up against him.
And a lot of that work from Evans was right in there on Sim Boulard. Well, Marvin Menzies said he had a few tricks, and right away out of the halftime break, a lob from Ross Miller to the high-flying C. That's a good way to start for the WAC tournament champs. Rob Lowe had some foul trouble in the first half.
Man-to-man defense for New Mexico State. And now again, Boulard's the one that forced that play away.
Shot clock down to 7. And Glaze has to get up a three-pointer. So a good start on both sides for New Mexico State.
Let's see if they can get the ball inside to Bular.
So we have block call on Glaze. Sim Bular, 1 for 3 shooting in the first half.
He had a tough time hanging on to the ball. They were very good defensively against him. And not only were they good defensively against him, they were good defensively pressuring the basketball, were the Billikens. And it's hard to find the big guy inside if you can't see him. And I realize it's tough not to be able to see a 7'5" guy, but the defensive pressure on the ball, I think, has been a big factor.
He was the freshman of the year in the WAC. Mullings inside to C, and a lot more flow to the Aggies offense these first 2 possessions.
Good movement without the ball by Bonjasi, and he is a guy who's capable of big offensive numbers. It's a good idea to get him involved early.
Tremaine Mitchell, the 2-man game with Glaze, goes right by Bular with hands low. No contest at all, and Glaze is on the board. He's the lone underclassman in the rotation for St. Louis. He's a sophomore, and a roster full of juniors and seniors. Mullings found himself wide open. Bular the board.
Now, when you're 7'5" and you get the ball under the basket, don't pass it out.
His coach said he's a good passer, but that's not the time to make the pass.
Well, if he's at the top of the key, he can pass the ball. But when he's right under the basket, go up and dunk it.
Doesn't take much to do that. Right out of the half, Dan, New Mexico State.
Well, they get a screen, and Bonjasi goes to the basket, and C is a high flyer. We've already talked about that, and the dribble penetration, and they just lose track of Bonjasi. So good movement without the ball, but created by dribble penetration.
Well, we asked Jim Cruz, the St. Louis head coach, about New Mexico State. He said, don't do what I did and keep your eyes on Bular as Evans connects his first points of the second half. If you spend all of your time watching Bular, and he's hard to take your eyes off of, you forget to notice the athleticism and the speed and quickness of New Mexico State. Bonjasi for 3, got it.
Boy, he's come out a house of fire, hadn't he? C is a guy that struggled through December and some of January, but over the last 20 games, he's averaged almost 15 points a game and shot almost 50% from beyond the arc.
There's a block by Bular.
We've been talking about Bular, and so far it's just been an intimidating presence on defense. This time he actually blocks the shot.
McCall, no. One and done for the Billikens. So Bular now with 14 consecutive games with a block. He started the last 25.
This is a good matchup here. Bonjasi against Evans.
See, he's feeling it right now. And that went back and hit the shot clock up above St. Louis ball. A reminder to watch live games on your computer, iPhone, iPad, and select Android devices with NCAA March Madness Live. Watch now at ncaa.com/March Madness or download the app today. Billiken basketball, 10-point lead, the 4 seed from the Atlantic 10. Mitchell to Evans, and again just too quick for Sim Bular. Evans has done a lot of work inside against the 7'5" Bular.
He's a very crafty guy inside. That time he got past Bular and used the rim to protect the basketball so Bular couldn't get to it.
20 points.
See, Bular has to handle the ball on offense. They've got to throw it up there and let him go get it.
Ross Miller backing it out. The high screen from Bular.
Throwing the ball.
Yeah, he was open. There's Mullings. And that ball was deflected. New Mexico State basketball. Just 5 on the shot clock.
Now, Bular defensively is in the middle of the lane. He stops the drive to the basket, but he's not really quick enough to get back to Evans. And Evans does a great job going to the other side of the goal.
Ross Miller with a shot clock winding down. Low with the rebound. See the numbers on Evans. 9 field goals made. 20 points already. Evans spins. Oh, my goodness. Dwayne Evans having a monster game.
They really should consider guarding him.
This is not a team, St. Louis, that has that dominant score. Evans is their leading scorer. He averages just shy of 14 a game. They have very balanced scoring, but Evans is going off here today in San Jose. first to know the latest news on all your teams with Bleacher Report's Team Stream apps. Stay one step ahead. Check out Team Stream on your iPhone, iPad, or Android device today. Brian Anderson with Dan Bonner. First of our 4 games today in San Jose, New Mexico State against St. Louis.
Brian, remember how we told you that New Mexico State scores more points from the free throw line than they do from beyond the three-point arc, where they have not scored any points from the free throw line today.
And just 1 attempt so far.
And there's another instance of what we heard Martin Menzie talk about at halftime. They can't finish inside.
There's a steal by Mullings. Mitchell trying to take it right back, and Clemaine Mitchell with a foul. Great job getting back and recovering, not allowing an easy bucket.
Those are 2 pretty tough guys going after the basketball.
Back in San Jose with St. Louis up 14. You know, you never know when you're going to need a television. Such was the case for St. Louis this past weekend. They were in Brooklyn playing the A-10 championship game. Had to go through Manhattan in a lot of traffic, and they wanted to see our selection show. They were going to miss the selection show, so they pulled off the highway at 5:50 in the evening, found a Best Buy, and look, they made themselves at home sitting on the couches and the chairs. Found a TV to watch our selection show. Coach John Platt went in and said, hey, is it okay if 50 of us come in? They said, sure, why not? But the coolest part, about 20 customers in the store were there cheering them on, and when their name was announced, they all erupted. And a good thing, too, they were one of the first teams announced in the tournament, Brian.
Yes, and every electronics store in the country is signing up, calling programs, as are our marketing folks. That was a great story. They spent about 15 minutes in that shop. Remy Berry fouled. So Rob Lowe picks up his 3rd foul, and that's going to immediately send him to the bench.
And Lowe has not been a factor in the game offensively. And one of the reasons for that is they have New Mexico State decided not to try to cover him with Boular, and so they've been covering him with Bonjassi. Can't get that shot off. That's the first free throw made by New Mexico State today, and that is a big part of their offense. Almost 25% of the offense comes from from the free throw line.
We'll see their field goal percentage, just 24 points, 28% shooting. Only Villanova, LIU, Brooklyn, and Indiana attempting more free throws in the NCAA than New Mexico State. And Mullings bounced it off his foot, able to save it, going up top for Bonjassi.
He may not be 7'5", but when he jumps up in the air, he can go a whole lot higher.
Well, we'll see what kind of run New Mexico State can get on without Boular in the game. And Mullings with a foul. Mullings, the steals leader in the WAC. Already has a steal today, and that time got caught with a foul. Good job saving the ball here.
Well, it's just a great job by Mullings. His hustle really creates the play, because by getting over there, the defense is a little bit discombobulated, and that'll help discombobulate you. Have that guy flying through the air.
Bonjassi with 9 points in the second half. 4 field goals. He's hit a 3-pointer in this half. Here's Ellis, had it blocked. Remican.
Well, now this is something different that St. Louis has not had to face. They've played the man-to-man, they've played the zone, they've played with Boular in the game, but now they're playing with the quickness out there, and they're trying to handle it, and not very well that time.
Dixon a block, the steal by Mullings. And to the basket goes Ross Miller. The starting point guard goes strong. The Texan timeout, St. Louis. And the Aggies are alive in San Jose. Dan Bonjassi, 9 points in the second half.
Well, he is a guy that's really been able to get rolling. Remember, we talked about with New Mexico State, they want to score close to the basket. Well, when he's around with his athleticism and jumping ability, he can go up and get you a bucket close to the basket.
It's 13-4 matchup here at San Jose. The full court pressure and a whistle. Ross Miller with the foul. Marvin Menzies. See the scoring so far today. New Mexico State held to a season-low 16 points. They've been much more efficient. Already 12 points in the second half. Mitchell ran out of room. There's Evans to Remican, had it blocked. Dixon with blocks in 2 of the last 3 defensive possessions. Remy Berry for 3, got it. That's not something the Aggies do a lot of, but that is a big 3.
This pressure has really changed the whole complexion of the game.
No call. Ross Miller trying to get one from the referees.
Now this is a situation where St. Louis has to slow it down. New Mexico State drops back into the zone. You want to be aggressive against the zone.
Evans finds that spot, and he has hit it all day long.
You're right, Brian. That has been his spot.
Evans just 1 point shy of a career best, which he had in the quarterfinals of the A-10 tournament against Charlotte. Had 25 points against Charlotte. He's sitting on 24 right now. Bonjasi against Evans, a whistle, and C will go to the line.
The New Mexico offense looking much better at the moment, and one of the reasons is their defense has fueled their offense. In the first half, we talked about the fact that they really needed to get some offense from their defense. Gets a little bit easier when you get those open shots, but Evans, as he has had all the game long, has the answer with that jump shot in the lane.
Now, Remy Berry has made just 6 3-pointers all season. And he hits a big one there for Marvin Menzies. 8-point lead. And Remy Berry in there for Sim Boular. And New Mexico State starting to cut into this deficit as Bonjasi hits the first. He's a 68% free throw shooter. See the senior out of France, Sergi, France, just outside Paris. All set to graduate next fall from New Mexico State. And he hits them both. Been a huge factor in the second half.
And when they score, they can set the pressure, and St. Louis really hasn't handled the pressure all that well.
Evans, good pass. Couple of pump fakes. And Remican going to the line. 6-point St. Louis lead. And a reminder, coverage of the 2013 NCAA Division I Women's Basketball Championship begins Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern on ESPN2. For more information on game times and listings, go to ncaa.com.
St. Louis generally a pretty good free throw shooting team, over 70% as a team, but Remican is not one of the better free throw shooters, only 46%.
St. Louis clears the deck for the free throws. And Remican hits 1 out of 2. Upping his season average. 40-33. The Billikens by 7. New Mexico State making a nice run here in the second half. Tightening it up.
Their man-to-man defense in the second half, the St. Louis I'm talking about, they really haven't been able to guard Bonjasi.
Mullings had it stripped. Quamaine Mitchell with a steal. Mitchell looking to push it. Here's Ellis, the 3-point shooter, just inside the arc. And Remy Berry clears it away.
I'm not sure that you want to take a quick shot in that situation.
No for C. Jodair Jet. Jet to Remican. So the Billikens in transition.
Brian, but what did we just see? Bonjasi, and I don't have any problem with him taking that shot because he's been hot, but when you take that quick 3 and it's a long rebound, it's almost like a turnover. It allows St. Louis to get down and get an easy basket and sort of reestablish some control over the game.
And again, one of the few teams, New Mexico State, who makes more free throws than 3-pointers. It's not really part of their game, the 3-pointer. Mullings tried to squeeze one in. Berry lost the handle. Shot clock at 5 and another turnover. Jodair Jet. He's got Evans up ahead. Jet finds some space. Nice. The senior from St. Paul, Jordan Jet, the backup point guard.
New Mexico State is trying much too hard to beat the St. Louis Billiken defense off the dribble early in the shot clock. Move the ball around a little bit before you try this penetration to the basket to get the defense out of position. The transition basketball has been good for New Mexico State here in the second half, but St. Louis turns the tables, and they have reasserted some control over this game.
Brian and Dan, back to you.
All right, Greg, thanks. Here in San Jose, St. Louis up 11 on New Mexico State, and moments ago, the Oregon Ducks entering the building here in San Jose. Dominic Artis. It'll be Oregon and Oklahoma State coming your way next on TNT. And the winner of this game will match up against the winner of Oklahoma State and Oregon, as Ross Miller, just the 6th free throw attempt for New Mexico State, now 3 for 6 from the line. On TBS, Wichita State coming down to the end against Pitt, and 53-39. That's on TBS. You want to see the finish of that game. So Bular back in the game for New Mexico State. Full court pressure by the Aggies.
And Bular, he's of course back defending the goal, so they can put a lot of pressure on the basketball. Feeling pretty confident. Be hard to drive all the way to the basket with Bular under there.
Here's Jet.
Back to the zone.
Romaine Mitchell getting a breather here. Jet goes to the basket, and Bular certainly affected that shot. DeRuin running the point for the Aggies. Barry to C and low with 3 fouls. An easy block. Barry put it right there for him.
Better ball movement that time, though, from New Mexico State.
Three-pointer, Cody Ellis. That's 3 from behind the arc for the sharpshooter.
And Ellis is willing to take that shot in transition, and as long as he's on balance, then that's a good shot, whether it goes in or not.
13-point lead for the Billikens. DeRuin for 3. On Jassi, no, and Evans clears the deck.
And Brian, you mentioned that the three-point basket is not part of one of the strengths of this New Mexico team. They still have plenty of time to get back in the game playing the half-court offense.
Here's Ellis. And there's that spot. It's been available all day for Evans and now Ellis.
That's the shot that you have to be willing to take against Sim Bular. You can't drive the ball all the way to the basket. That mid-range jump shot has been available. First for Evans, now for Ellis.
A quick 5 spot for the native of Perth, Australia, Cody Ellis.
Now, one of the things that you do when you go defense to offense is one of your defensive guys has to be willing to get down the court. And watch as Cody Ellis gets out of there quickly, runs to a spot in the corner. Ellis recognizing what's going on, looks at the ball, and you can see him running up the court. He's watching the ball, but goes to his spot in the corner and knocks it down. That's what you call defense to offense. An excellent play in transition by a St. Louis team, and I'll say it one more time, they're not trying to play slowly.
Cody Ellis, the 6th man of the year in the A10. He's 3rd on this Billiken team in scoring, despite not being a starter. And he's just hit for a quick 5 points.
See, the ball's got to move a little bit more. Move the ball from side to side, and then try to drive it to the basket.
Shot clock at 8. Remy Berry fumbles with it. Got to get something going here. It's winding down to 2. Mullings. Bular with the offensive board. And Mullings goes to the hole, a block. And Mullings with free throws coming up.
One of the interesting things that we've seen here today, Brian, is that Sim Bular simply has not been aggressive, either on the offensive end or the defensive end. That time he got the offensive rebound. He was fairly close to the basket, but never even thought about shooting the ball. Passed it right back outside.
Marvin Menzies calls him the gentle giant at 7'5", 360.
Well, he needs more giant and less gentle at the moment.
Mullings connects on the first. Of Indian descent. His parents from India, that they were raised in the Toronto area. Sim Bular Played his high school ball at Huntington Prep one season before arriving to New Mexico State. Mullins hits them both. See if the Aggies have a run at him here. This is where all of that experience for St. Louis can be cashed in. Mitchell back in along with Mike McCall, the two starting guards. Here's Ellis, kicks it down to Remican, and Boulard got a piece of that. And a whistle on Boulard as we check in with Marty.
Well, you think Sim is impressive. You got to check out his brother, who's a junior in high school, Tanvir. We see the replay of him getting that block and the foul right there. He is 7'3", 300 pounds, and he's a junior in high school, and the doctors say he's not done growing. Now, you think his parents would be enormous, but they're really not. His dad is about 6'2". His mom is 6 feet tall. His sister, 5'10". And Tanvir, his little brother, came to an Aggies game earlier this year. You think the crowd was chanting for him to commit to New Mexico State, so certainly recruiting him very hard. But again, his brother, a junior, 7'3", 300 pounds, and not done growing.
He's the runt of the family. Remican at the free throw line. Just a 46% free throw shooter. But he's made 3 out of 4 so far today. He's also playing with 3 fouls. As St. Louis handled the storm from the Aggies. Inside to Boulard, and he finally gets free.
Well, he got free, but that time New Mexico State aggressively tried to get him the ball.
Mitchell, the senior from Milwaukee.
St. Louis doesn't have to be in a hurry, but it's much too early to start sitting on the basketball, of course. You don't want to lose your aggressiveness.
McCall kicks it out. Remican. And now back to the top. Shot clock at 7. C matching up against Mitchell. A lot of trees in there from Mitchell. And he hands it to Remican to get it swatted.
Well, Remican's thinking, why are you giving it to me?
Bunja C. And he lost it. Jake Barnett got a piece. Another turnover for New Mexico State. Missing a golden opportunity. Again, Remican gets the ball under the basket and around the 7'5" Boulard.
That's a pass that Ellis would normally make, but it's a tough pass in that situation. Remican, really clever play, because I'm sure he's thinking, what, I got it again? The big guy's here.
Remican averages just 4.5 a game. And he already has 9 today, including 3 free throws made. A C goes in and is fouled. So we'll take a timeout. Sim Boulard finally getting into the act. Wiggles free from Remican, but Remican on the other end using the glass. Follow tournament scores, stats, and news live on the CBS Sports app. Get it free by texting SCORE to 42777 or by visiting cbssports.com/mobile from your phone or tablet. The St. Louis Billikens, the 4 seed last year, knocked out by Michigan State. Rick Majerus' first trip to the NCAA tournament with St. Louis, and the late Majerus turning the reins over to Jim Cruz. And a very popular pick, St. Louis, as Bunja C at the free throw line comes up short. So I guess the big question right now for Marvin Menzies, with or without Sim Boulard at this point, and he'll sit for the time being. The Aggies were able to claw back within 7 without him, but then let it get away a little bit. St. Louis recovered.
St. Louis is a veteran team. They handle the ball very well. They were knocked back on their heels a little bit by the pressure, but then, as you would expect, they adjusted to that pressure. So now they're going to give it another go here, are the Aggies.
Kevin Aronis called for the foul. See New Mexico State in the bonus. Here's Ellis. Romaine Mitchell passes up a 3. Remican has 9 points.
He's not a jump shooter, Remican.
McCall had it blocked. That's the 3rd block of the game by Ronaldo Dixon. And he comes away with a loose ball.
Brian, you're right. With guys like Dixon and C in the game, it's not like New Mexico State doesn't have any shot blockers when Bular is out.
Aronis for three. Comes up short. Kevin Aronis.
Well, that's his job. He comes in to shoot threes. He's only had 10 field goal attempts all season long that have not been three-pointers.
Evans dumps it into Remican, and Remican is there for the finish. Great two-man game between the St. Louis Bigs, Evans and Remican.
What hasn't Evans done today?
Evans with 24 points, has 6 rebounds, and now he's just dished out his first assist. St. Louis starting to stretch it out. Mullings over Ellis. Here comes Mitchell. Mitchell and McCall. Mitchell will take it himself. Wow. Kwame Mitchell going fast and finishing at the rim.
Going fast, but going through a lot of obstacles, Brian. That was very impressive.
Missed the first 11 games with a foot injury. Has over 1,500 points at St. Louis. He's 7th all-time. In the corner. That's DeRuin. Not there. Mullings with the board. And he turns it over. McCall. He's got Evans behind him. And McCall takes it himself. St. Louis in transition. Starting to put this away. 20-point lead. The biggest of the game for the Billikens. This is a red-hot team, St. Louis. They've won 15 of their last 16 games. Took down VCU twice this year. 3 times they defeated Butler.
Just another quick shot by New Mexico State, and they are trying to make up 20 points. They don't have a lot of time, but if you just shoot the ball that quickly, you've got no chance for a rebound.
Ellis and Aronis with another foul.
And talk about how efficient this St. Louis offense has been. Right there you have the ball screen and the roll, just a simple screen and roll, very well executed by St. Louis. And then Mitchell going at top speed, avoiding some obstacles and knocking it in, and then more transition. McCall sees the defender behind him, but also sees Evans and elects to take it up and score. St. Louis has been good in the half court. They've been good in transition. They've been solid in the half court defense.
As Bular checks back in, St. Louis has 20 points off turnovers, 15 New Mexico State turnovers. 11 for Cody Ellis, a senior from Australia, averages just over 10 a game. He's hit a couple of big three-pointers in this game. Made 3 three-pointers in that victory over VCU in the A-10 championship game. Bonjasi not there. Up and over the backboard. St. Louis basketball. Well, over on True TV, Davidson and Marquette are underway, and they're hooked up in a dandy in the first half.
That would be a very interesting game. Davidson with all those veteran guys, and Davidson scores almost 78 points a game. That'll be a really interesting affair with the Big East power, Marquette. Speaking of the Big East, Pitt on the short end of that score with Wichita State over on TBS. A couple of minutes left in that one.
Well, you can't talk about Marquette and not have memories of Rick Majerus, what he meant to Marquette, and certainly what he meant to the St. Louis Billikens. They have dedicated the season to their late coach, and the Billikens are rolling here in San Jose.
51, under a minute and a half to play. Brian and Dan.
All right, Greg, thanks. Shockers a very good team. You see St. Louis up 60-39. Our game summary. New Mexico State doesn't shoot the three-pointer well. They tried to get back in it with the 3, but just 2 for 13.
And that field goal percentage, I think, at 28%, a big key to this ball game. The St. Louis defense started the game in a very strong fashion, and they have continued that right through to this point.
Kwame Mitchell misses the free throw. Bular with the board. Now St. Louis to advance and face the winner of Oregon and Oklahoma State, which is coming up next on TNT. Boy, what a team here, St. Louis. Kind of a perfect storm between talent, experience, the emotional presence, obviously, the passing of their coach, Rick Majerus. Jim Cruz has done a great job with this team.
And now they're content to just run time off the clock here before they start to attack. A very comfortable lead.
Evans has had a big game. 24 points, just one off a career high as a steal by Daniel Mullings.
Really impressed with Mullings' quickness.
DeRuan down in the corner, the Las Cruces native. And there's a whistle. Well, St. Louis wears that patch in honor of Rick Majerus, coach. Basically the same offense here. Jim Cruz didn't change much at all. And an entire roster full of Majerus recruits. And Jim Cruz has taken tournament teams in Evansville. It's been 17 years at Evansville. And he's not sure what he'll do. He is still an interim coach. That's his title, his label right now. But Jim Cruz is one of the 4 finalists for the National Coach of the Year. Marty?
Well, Brian, a rock for the St. Louis team certainly has been Angie Kavidra. She is the girlfriend of Rick Majerus. They actually dated in college back at Marquette, and then they dated for the last 8 years as well. She was with them until the very end, and she's here today at the game, and I asked her, why do you come to the game? She said, well, honestly, this is where I feel closest to him. I know he's here, and he was so excited this summer, she told me earlier today, to see this team play. He knew they had the potential. He said, she said, selfishly for me, I don't want this run to end because I know I feel Rick when I'm at the court, and she said there's no place I would rather be, and she's been certainly a rock for this basketball team.
And she was the primary source of communication when Rick was really struggling there at the end. St. Louis calls on a game against Valparaiso. It was right after the passing of Majerus, and the next game they played had a couple of losses. They won that game, ended up winning 9 in a row, got on a great run through the A-10. I mentioned they won 15 of their last 16, and they're trying to make it 5 in a row as Evans goes to the bench with a very successful day in the opener of this tournament. 24 points on 11 of 16 shooting and 6 rebounds.
One of the interesting things I think about this St. Louis team, and it I think he indicates the character not only of the team but of Jim Cruz, and he said it's not my team, it's their team. You mentioned he didn't make any changes, and he said that was why. And he described to us a situation where there have been times when he's been over on the bench saying, okay, let's do this, and the players, mainly Kwame Mitchell, will say, no, I think this would be a better thing to do, and he says, oh, okay. So it's not exactly a total democracy, but Jim Cruz understands that it's the players' team, and he allows them to function that way, and they have been functioning very well so far this afternoon.
Now they're a minute 46 from advancing to the round of 32. Check the bar up top. A lot of games going on. True TV, TBS, CBS. And Bonjasi in his final days here at New Mexico State. He's set to graduate next fall. Big hug from his coach, Marvin Menzies. Now New Mexico State had a good run. They stopped Louisiana Tech's long winning streak that had reached 18 games just 2 weeks ago. Made a run through the WAC tournament, culminating in a victory over UTA on Sunday. Back-to-back trips to the NCAA tournament for Menzies. Well, he loves his guys, and here's one of his favorites.
Of course, this is part of the NCAA tournament as well. The guys playing in their last game oftentimes, in fact, everybody except the guys that win, the one team, everybody else goes out on the short end of the score.
C goes out with a bang, 17 points, 9 rebounds. And just not enough in the tank against St. Louis. Ranked as high as 16th in the country at one point this year. Back-to-back weeks inside the top 20. Manning trying to get on the board. Manning again. Right there. Now don't forget, here on TNT we've got Oklahoma State and Oregon coming up. Well, what a matchup that's going to be. A 5-12, and Oregon doesn't feel like a 12 seed. Oklahoma State and Marcus Smart, one of the premier players in the country. And those two will play it off for the right to match up against the Billikens from St. Louis. Now from executive producer Donnie Wahlberg, Cops, Real Crimes, Real Drama. Boston's finest, new Wednesday at 9/8 Central on TNT. As we wind it down here in San Jose. For the 7th time this year, Dan, St. Louis is going to hold an opponent to under 50 points. And you talk about their defense right at the outset. They delivered today in a big way. Hey, on the board is Sean Duff.
He's only played 10 minutes all year and gets a bucket in an NCAA tournament game.
He's doubled his scoring output from this year. Now 4 points all season. St. Louis is advancing to the round of 32. Evans a big day with 24 points. And for Jim Cruz, his first NCAA tournament win since 1989. And the popular pick is moving on. Now will they face Oregon or Oklahoma State? A 20-point Billiken victory here today. Well, the balanced scoring, the experience of St. Louis. Even Sean Duff gets into the stat sheet with just his second made field goal of the season.
And the unusual thing about that field goal is there wasn't an assist. 26 field goals for St. Louis today, 18 of those assisted. The Billikens, they not only played great defense, they passed the ball very well. This is an impressive basketball team playing very well at the right time.
Their 28th win of the season. They're now 28-6. Tournament games continue live now on CBS, TNT, and True TV. Oregon, Oklahoma State coming up on TNT. And we'll send you to our studio after these messages. The Billikens in San Jose advance a 20-point win over New Mexico State. So long from San Jose.